Hello, hello.
Alex, start.
Oh, okay, okay. So this is Sitrep PH, the podcast on Filipino affairs and Filipino interest. Happy Sunday. I'm Informed PH live from Manila. With me is my co-host Ivan at home. So President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Sunday urged the armed forces of the Philippines to continue defending the nation, just as he said that we Philippines would not instigate wars nor yield to any foreign power amid challenging times. Our president said, "We are not in the business to instigate wars. Our great ambition is to provide a peaceful and prosperous life for every Filipino. This is the drumbeat. This is the principle that we live by and that we march by. We refuse to play by the rules that force us to choose sides in a great power competition. No government that truly exists in the service of the people will invite danger or harm to lives and livelihood." Marcos issued that statement nearly a week since China's latest maritime aggression during the country's recent resupply mission at the BRP Madre in Ayungin Shoal last June 17, which saw a sailor lose his right thumb.
With us this evening to discuss the great power competitions in our region and its implication on Philippine security is Dr. Lokman Karadag. Dr. Lokman is a expert in the security architecture of East and South Asia, on the East and South Asian region, with a distinguished career in political science and international relations. Dr. Karadak's research on the strategic importance of these regions, particularly within the context of the US China rivalry. His research also encompasses China's military modernization, the Korean Peninsula's nuclear issues, Taiwan, South China Sea, the US alliance system in the geographic region, and more. In 2022, Dr. Lokman was named one of the emerging leaders at the National Committee on American Foreign Policy. Dr. Lokman, welcome to Sitrep.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to join Citrep's podcast uh, for about the West Philippine Sea and South China Sea.
So, sir, before
Mhm.
we begin, perhaps some introduction questions. Can you tell us about yourself and what got you really interested in East Asian issues? And perhaps you can tell us about your line of study.
Yes, this area of the conflict of the complex situation of the South China Sea is my research field. I completed my PhD thesis on this exactly in the same region. But in the wider, the U.S. and China relation is under the scope of my study. I spent I think more than 6 years on these issues, the intricate dynamics of the U.S.-China relations, China's as a rising power, what a
Mhm.
rising power doing through the history and. Also the countries like the Philippines and the other Southeast Asian countries are important in order to understand the US-China relations. Yes, this is my field of research. I completed my PhD at study on this region, and now as you
Mhm.
know, these are complex situations. The situation became deteriorated day by day, and that's all about
Mhm.
my research.
You currently reside in Turkey. Am I correct, Dr. Lokman?
Yeah, yes. But I completed my master, my PhD study in Malaysia, which is very close to the South China Sea and the Philippine
Hmm.
Sea.
Have you visited the Philippines or do you have Filipino
No,
friends?
unfortunately, because first when I come to Malaysia, just that the pandemic was started, and I don't have an opportunity. I think almost around 1 year, more than 1 year. Then I focused on my PhD study, and but hope in the future I will have
Yes.
opportunity to visit Manila and other part of the
You should,
Philippines.
you should get out of Manila after a few days of touring and then go to the beaches, the best in Asia.
Yeah, yes, exactly. The beaches also in Malaysia, Sabah, are very nice,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I believe that there is a quite similarity between Malaysia and Philippines.
Yes, you should visit us sometimes, Dr. Lockman. So, Ivan, do you have the first question for our
Wait, no,
special guest?
I think you have the first question, Alex.
Ah, it's me. Okay, hold, hold on. Okay, my first question for our guest. Uh, Dr. Lockman, we would like to hear your thoughts and reactions to the recent skirmishes that's happening in the West Philippine Sea and the statements coming out of Manila, especially from the Philippine president. What are your thoughts about what's happening
Yeah, yes, the I would like to start with the situation of the
with the
happened.
recent, with the
Yes,
recent
Just initial
Union show?
thoughts,
Yeah.
sir.
yeah, yes, this is I think that about the geographical position of the Filipinos for a small countries or middle-sized countries
Mm.
is sometimes can be a misfortune to living next to the great powers. When we look at to the history in the during the Second World War or the First World War, we look at the situation of the Germany and the Soviet Union and the situation of the France and the Britain. It's always difficult to living next to a great powers, especially when they entered the process to arise economically, and this became situation became strange and difficult for its neighbors. And now I think this is the similar situation we are facing with the China's rising and the militarization of the South China Sea, and it is a relations it is relations with its neighbors became more
Mhm.
complex, and also the involvement of the United States as another global hegemon
Mm.
to come to the region. They make it the situation more complex, and now from here it is crucial for a countries, small countries between the superpowers to manage these difficult times, difficult positions.
And so it's a good thing you brought up China's rise, sir, and the great power conflicts. And we've noticed that a lot of your work is focused on the great power conflicts taking place now between the United States and China in the Indo-Pacific region, specifically in East Asia. And perhaps before we proceed any further, perhaps you can set a stage, sir, on what is taking place right now in terms of this great power conflict. Can you tell us briefly, like who the players are, what are their intentions, like a bird's eye view on the map, sir.
Yes, it's always important to understand the background and the dynamics of the rising powers and the behavior of established hegemons, because the rising power always through the history, when they rise they try to change the security structures and later the global structure. When we look at to the situation today happened over the not today, over the past 10 years maybe, in the East Asia, the militarization of the South China Sea, especially with the artificial islands and the rocks and the buildings on the islands, is one of the overall and comprehensive pillars of the China's military strategies as a great power toward these two region, east and South China Seas. The East China Sea also is another important part that people always ignore, the East China Sea. But I think from the China's point of view, these two seas, East and South China Seas, are combined, are their need seas, and great powers is another important point. Uh, China feels as a great power. They feels always the threat from the maritime power, from it is east borders, not from the land borders. That's why the in it is the process to rising as a regional hegemon, or to in the future maybe rising became a global hegemon in its strategies. The breaking of US influence in East Asia and Pacific, and the rise of the PRC again to the world leadership, and guaranteeing its national sovereignty against external interventions, depends entirely on the diversity of the to fully secure change the security architecture of this South China Sea. and East China Sea in its favor. That's why we saw today at the non-dash line, the
Mm.
implementation of non-dash line. And another thing, although the PRC climbs over the South China Sea and the foundations of the non-dash line strategy that back to the early 1900s, and PRC's maritime policy has been consistent in this regard since, especially since Deng Xiaoping. But the main difference is that the PRC is now today more capable and more determined to safeguard its maritime rights. And generally, the PRC has not changed its policies of shelving disputers and maintaining its defense. In addition to its economic growth and military capability, people approach to the PRC as a policy. But from here, what the Filipinos will do, because the Philippines has its own rights. As initially I said, it is difficult to maintain the balance between when two elephants in the room. It is difficult for a countries like the Philippines to manage between these powers. But when we look at the situation of the non-dash line, it's totally it's also not good for China, because they put the pressure on their neighbors, and the claim over the 80% of this global maritime route on the South China Sea. But the China still they need to do. I'm not saying the China is right. China as a rising power, they have to establish this regional hegemony, because this is the nature of the rising powers. When a power
Mm.
economically became more capable, later they automatically, almost always through the history, they translate this economic power into the military power projection capability. And now China actually not doing the something we are not familiar when we look at the history. But the situation of the Filipinos, and especially of the Filipinos, because the China's attitude toward Vietnam is different, because they solved it is some maritime
Mm.
issues with the Vietnams. I think this is one of the Beijing's strategies to divide maybe Southeast Asian nations in order to divide it as burden, because on the other hand, United States involving to the region, it is not easy to make all neighbors its enemy at the same time. That is why the China's relations with Vietnam is differentiated with the its relations with the Philippines, with the Manilas. But another thing also, I think we have to mention the governance of the Philippines, the change of the government per 6 years, the effect on the situation. But in the foreseeable future, I believe that we will see these conflicts repeatedly, because this is the behavior, the nature of the rising powers. They first try to establish their regional hegemony, and China's most important regional hegemony is the maritime, because the I think that the 80% of the China's oil export and trade export come through South China Sea, and this situation make it the some neighbors' rights sacrifice to the rising powers behaviors. Yes, this is my initial observations will be for the situation.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm. Okay, so you wrote in a paper in 2022 that, and I quote, the People's Republic of China, under the current leadership, seeks to reorder the regional security architecture to its favor by leveraging military modernization, influence operations, and diplomatic economic power to remove the influence of the US and its allies over the East and South China Sea. In your opinion, sir, Dr. Lokman, how successful is China in that push of
Yeah,
theirs
yes.
to reorder the regional balance?
How successful are they, sir?
Yeah, yeah. y- y- I
Yep, that's
think
the
I
question.
think yes, I think the China is in terms of its claim and then the practical application. I think the China to some extent successful, because the military, a lot of rocks and islands on the
Mm.
South China Seas has been militarized already, and
Mm.
the apart, especially since Xi Jinping come to power in 2013, the PRC has been following much more centralized policies regarding this region. I mean, the South China Sea,
Mm.
and established some new administrative buildings and even hospitals and sports complexes. There are also runways can land fighter jets equipped with defensive systems, radar antenna, and radio systems that are intended to monitor the area around them and have been established by Beijing on the sprightly islands on the massive artificial island. And this, I think, success, from the point of view. The China rapidly building something when not the Southeast Asian countries like the Malaysia, Philippines, or Vietnam. The main, I think, the main player, the United States, was occupied in the other part of the world
In the
in
Middle East.
time. Yes, when the United States was busy with the issues in Iraq, in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, China successfully implemented, and I think partly, not fully, partly reorder the security architecture of the South China Sea in its favor, and I think
Eh,
that
mm.
the Philippines and the US also delayed to come to pivot to Asia. I think
Specifically, sir, on the diplomatic and influence campaigns, because naturally we're seeing reports now of state-sponsored Chinese efforts, both in the cyberspace and through their official channels through the embassies. Can you give us like examples of what this looks like, a Chinese full-blown information campaign to try and reshape your country?
yes. When we look at the China's diplomatic relations with the Southeast Asian nations, not only Filipinos, other countries like Indonesia, like Vietnam, like Malaysia, like Cambodia, Laos, and other countries, it is difficult to say, China. Of course, China will do its best to increase its influence in these countries, but the Southeast Asian countries in total, they're especially in terms of trade, that depend on China, and this is another pillar make
Mm.
it the difficulties in operating in diplomatic area, or make it a diplomatic negotiations with the China. Today when we look at the situation in the South China Sea, I think the
Mm.
Filipinos seems to alone. There is an
We're,
ASEAN structure, and
Mm.
how many countries member of the ASEAN? you know no one are involving to the why, because they have
Mm.
huge amount of economic and trade relations with the China. No one want to deteriorate its relations with the China. This influence, but on the other hand, also as you mentioned, this is not my area of research, like the cyber influence, cyberspace attack, or but we have also the communist legacy. There is the communist parties in the Southeast Asian countries. They are in favor of China in many ways. uh, yes, the situation for government house is difficult, and this all, or I think, as I said, like the trade relations as to be dependent on China in from the
mm.
point of view of the trade, and to be neighbor with China, because China is a rising and giant military power.
Mm.
It is difficult to engage with a giant power, and all when you look at all this structure, they make it the situations complex and difficult with countries like Philippine. But what the Philippine how to do? What is its option?
Mm.
This China's behavior, like the non-dash line to push pressure on its neighbor, and claims over the exclusive economic zone of its neighbors, they will push, ultimately will push its neighbors into the another established hegemon, like the United States, like
Yes.
the Philippines today did. They will but this is the nature of great powers. The Japan Empire did the similar things during the Japan Empire. They occupied South Korea and the part of the China, Manchuria, and come to the Southeast Asia. This is the behavior of the rising power.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And perhaps like it's good that you mentioned that you repeated this belief that the Philippines was not, did not willingly go to the United States, but was pushed towards it out of necessity. And this was certainly what was echoed by a former National Security Advisor, Clarita Carlos, in the aftermath of, falling relations with Beijing. Uh, I was going to ask you for your next question, Professor Lokman, why is China engaged in this power play? But you've already answered that completely, which is this is a great power issue. This is a rising great power. But perhaps I can rephrase my question by asking, sir, what are their intentions and motives by doing this, playing this dangerous game? Well, what's the end goal over here? Especially, with increasing tensions now, not just in Taiwan and in the Philippines, but also in Korea, also in the waters of Japan. Do they not expect pushback? Well, what's their end goal here? Is this simply the reestablishment of the Middle Kingdom, the payback for the century of humiliation? Like, what's the motives and what's the end goal?
Yes, I think from the China's point of view, the importance of the South China Sea and also the West Philippine Sea today, there is became a situation of the conflict between the Manila and Beijing. Uh, from the point of view of Beijing as a rising power, all this the structure of security structure or the security architecture of the South China Sea and East China Sea related to China's became a global hegemon, related to its Chinese dream. Look at, if China cannot successfully change the security architecture of the East and South China Sea in its favor, China will not be able to invade Taiwan, because without fully secure and guarantee the security situation around the Taiwan, which is the maritime, all complete with the sea, there is no land border. If China not able to fully guarantee the security architecture in this favor, China will not be able to invade Taiwan or incorporate Taiwan in the mainland. The many reports they give the exact date, like 2027, like 2025, like 2030, 2040. But from my observations, my experience, I think without securing the security architecture in this favor fully, not partly, without the fully change the security architecture of this, not only of the South China Sea, only also in the East China Sea, in this favor, China will not be able to invade Taiwan, and without invade Taiwan, China will not be able to breach the first island chain and open the wider the Pacific region, became a global, not global power, but at least a global navy.
So their dream is basically, a Chinese version of the Monroe Doctrine, exerting influence and hegemony over a regional area.
Yes, maybe in the test there is many differences with the U.S. Monroe Doctrine, but it will be quite similar, as the U.S. United States did in the Western Hemisphere, and the China is also try to do the same thing in its region. And this is from the land side, China was able to manage resolve almost all its land borders except India, with Russia, with the other the Kazakhstan, with the other the countries in maybe the some part of the Pakistan and Tajikistan, but in partly in Vietnam, except India. But when we come to the maritime is make it more difficult. And another important point I think we should mention, uh,
Mm.
the, to resolve it is land border issues with its neighbors took decades, like the Sino-Soviet split and Sino-Soviet border issues. To resolve this problem, I think it took the 4 decades, and we don't know. Maybe there will be an opportunity for China and Philippines. They will resolve peacefully. We don't know. It depend to China doesn't have experience to resolve its border with the in maritime, because China has a rich experience to resolve its border issues with neighbors in the land. But China, this is just started, I think, with the Xi Jinping. Even not during the Hu Jintao, China not quite visible, at least in these maritime affairs. But since Xi Jinping come to power with his powerful leadership, and they try to make China, uh, they at least they put some strategy before Chinese decision makers, like the Chinese dream, like as a rising power, and another internal development like the China's economic growth. This is also another important part we have to look at. When a country is internally growth, its economy is growth. At the end, they should translate this economic might into the military power capability. As I say, China's 80% of the oil or other trade coming through the Persian Gulf and the Middle East. And when your trade is growth, you should protect. And this is, I'm coming back to my initial point. I'm not saying
Mm.
China's right in implementing and pushing its neighbors and occupy their exclusive economic zone. No, this is the behavior and nature of rising power. They are compulsory. They have to do this. This is a natural structures coming from the rising powers. Without occupy and building it as a regional hegemony, it will not be able to protect its growing economy and other things. But the situation for the forest civil feature, I think it will be more complex, because the great powers already involved, and China doesn't want to go back, because this latest, most recent incident is the sign of. They tell us something about the China's behavior. China cannot go back, because they already established. Otherwise, it will lost. And
So you're saying that China has crossed the Rubicon.
uh, this is this is how the rising powers are operating during establishing their regional hegemony. When we look at other all I think all rising powers in the history, they don't show the respect to their neighbors. If
So
they show,
it's
yeah,
existential for them, sir. Like either they do this or they don't become a great power,
yes,
basically.
yes, this is the point. Yes.
Okay, so I guess Alex has the next question.
Okay.
No, so what do you think? So what do you think? Like, what is the real flashpoint here? Because I saw in one of our president made a speech today in Palawan, and behind in the event there is a poster that says the real flashpoint. It's not Taiwan. It is the West Philippine Sea. Uh, do you agree with this statement or with this
Yeah, yes,
sentiment?
yes, I will fully agree with this statement, because this is exactly aligned with my argument. The Taiwan will come later, uh, but I can replace the Philippines with the South China Sea, as I said just in the previous questions. Without China, if cannot fully control the East and the South China Sea, the security architecture of these two sea in its favor, China will not be able to invade Taiwan. This is
Right.
the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the Philippines are a natural part of the West and South China Sea, Western Philippine Sea and South China Sea.
So we're just a stumbling block to Taiwan,
So,
which is their main
mm.
prize.
Uh,
Okay, so
yes,
So, what is your impression on how the Philippines has been playing its hand in this new brewing game in the Pacific? Like, how much success has it gotten to so far?
yes, it is difficult to measure the success between, the Philippines. Yes, is a part of this situation and also is at the forefront. But I think the main actor are the U.S. and China, and the Philippines has a mutual defense pact with the United States since the
Mm-hmm.
1951. But I think this the pact has never been activated through the history. This is also important uh, to be on the table, at least for the Philippines decision makers. And even if the United States activated this defense pact, what US will do? Will declare a war toward the China? I don't think the US. I don't think it will be easy for US easily activated this mutual defense pact. And now what will happen? Really, it is difficult to measure the success. And just a few years back, I was in Malaysia during my study. The time another government administration at the government in the Philippines. The time the relations was different, and today the relations again was different than a few years ago. I mean the China Philippine relations, and we don't know what will happen after the 5 years uh, the China and Philippine
Mm-hmm.
relations. It is difficult because there is two main political party in Philippines. One is more aligned with China. One is more aligned with US. Little bit similar to situation in the Korea, in the South Korea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, some one government they choose to improve relations with China, and others try to of course try to protect its national rights, national sovereignty, and this make it when the great powers like United States is involved and China on the other side is involved, they make a situation almost impossible to find some option. But the best way, of course, will be the peaceful resolution without a war. The situation of war is different.
Mm-hmm.
It is easy to always talking about war to make it the strategies, but many strategies has been failed during the conflicts and during the wars, and then the civilian and the people sacrifice their life in these situations. This is of course this is the jobs of the decision makers, but the situation I say it initially is difficult to be living with a giant power because their behavior is different, their interest is different, and China by many account now in a rising process, they are rising, and the US also will not accept through the history, not also in the case of the US China, um, all the established hegemons through the history, they don't accept to lose their chairs. They fight with,
Right. Right.
yes, they fight. Uh, Also, the US did similar thing. The situation of the United Kingdom's colonies, Britain colonies on the American continent, and fighting with the United States. This is the situation of the great powers, but this, as I say, this is unfortunate for the Philippines and other countries, and the Philippines doesn't have any help except, I think, at least from its geographical proximity, like I mean ASEAN countries.
Mm-hmm.
Japan has similar situation, has concern because Japan said if China occupy Taiwan directly will threat to my national security. And I don't know how much Australia can be effective to come to the
Mm-hmm.
help of the Philippines because of the geographical distance between the Australia and the, and the Philippines. Yes, this is my observation, but I hope my hope the situation will be peacefully, handled by the decision makers, by Beijing and Manila, because it's difficult. As I said, the war situation and conflict situation is not easy, like to talk on the report or writing on the report or on the on the podcast. The war situation now is we are experiencing in Ukraine, in Gaza, and thousands of people and children has been killed, and it is not easy. The flashpoints, all the flashpoints. Look at to the World War I and World War II, how they started. Just they start from a small flashpoint, and God forbid, and
Yes.
this flashpoint they can evolving easily. They can within the matter of seconds they can evolving into the different situation, and that time it will not be good for at least for civilian people. Yes, this this is my observation.
Um, you've been observing how it is, like how Philippines is in terms of foreign policy years back. So can you explain our listeners, like what is the difference between the current administration foreign and security policy to that of the previous president? Right now we have President Marcos, and his predecessor is President Duterte. So, what is their difference in terms of foreign policy?
Honestly, the foreign policy of Filipinos is not under the scope of my study. The things just I did my research are directly
Hmm.
interested with the South China Sea. But the things that I can comment on,
Right.
I
Okay.
w- I just not closely, but I know about
Yes,
the
just
situation.
your.
Yes, yes, this is my observation. As I said, at the time I was living in Malaysia during the Duterte time, the geographically these countries are very close. Sometimes I open the Philippines news outlet and I reading the articles and news from the Filipino side. That time the situation was, I think, more stable, but I don't aware about the station to how much the previous administration sacrificed its national sovereignty to China. I really don't have detail about the Filipinos, because the things that time I was focused on the station between the U.S. and China. But now in under the Marcos government, we can see that the flashpoints, the conflicts between the U.S. and China and Philippines Coast Guard, at least, are more visible and more intense. That this will be my observation.
Would you say it's because it there's more of it happening, or mainly because it's more being documented more often now? Because that's a criticism of the Duterte admin, that a lot of these things were still happening, and yet they got little coverage because he wanted to maintain good relations with Beijing.
Yes, it can be. It can be, but as I said, I'm not aware about the details,
Oh, of
and
course.
and for us scholar, it's difficult to make it. To talking about some the point, and really you don't know about it. It make it us in a difficult position. That's
Oh,
what. Just from far, I was observing the situation in Philippines, but as I said, even not documented, but still, I couldn't hear the conflicts as I hear today, because today
mm,
is every time when I look at to the on the news channels, even in news channels in my country, I look at, oh, there is the conflict and as a incident within the Filipino Coast Guard and the China's Coast Guard. And even we don't know, maybe China's became more assertive. Maybe this is another
Mm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
This is another point. Maybe we don't know because China try to increase its influence over the region.
So, sir, what is your outlook on how this will proceed within the next few years? Is there, like we mentioned before, is there a significant risk of drastic escalation? And where would it pop off, if ever? And if that is the case, how should Manila be navigating the increasingly troubled waters in the Pacific Ocean, like in the Indo-Pacific? Like, well, what's your recommendations on how Manila should proceed
Yeah,
moving?
yes. If I bring my recommendation from the history, I can say that it is quite difficult to dangerous, quite not difficult, quite dangerous
Mm.
to engage with the superpowers.
Right.
Mm.
This is a very dangerous. You know, you have military capability and they have military capability. You have navy capability, they have navy capability. And on the other hand, as I said, you know, the mutual treaty, defense treaty between the US and Philippines has never been activated until now.
Mm.
This is another important point. And the US has many other burdens. US has a problem with the nuclear issues in the North Korea, has a problem with the Ukraine, and now the US already had third front in Gaza and the Israel situations because the situation in the Middle East as maybe some US decision makers expected, Israel cannot completely they cannot finish uh, the Hamas operation in Gaza in a very limited time. Now,
Wouldn't the United States be in a difficult situation if, in the hypothetical situation, Manila activates the Mutual Defense Treaty and they didn't respond? Because you're talking about great power, and one of the things you would agree that maintains the U.S. hegemony is its agreements with other countries. So if they renege on their promises with Manila, wouldn't that send shockwaves to their other treaty allies?
yes, this is, you know, this is a difficulties and burden for the US.
Yes.
They make it a dilemma for US, not for US, for all others, the established hegemons through the history. They faced a very harsh dilemma. When they activate their promise, they will take a more burden, and when they don't activate their promise, not the US Philippine mutual defense activity. You know, tomorrow, if the North Korea attack on South Korea, will the US, to what extent will the US will activate its extent that nuclear deterrence, and it will directly trigger to China. You know, not it is not related to country. That is why I say that the US focus is diverged into three fronts. Now the US
Mm-hmm.
has occupied and should invest its resources in the South China Sea. The situation, you know, the became more intense, and the margin between the US and China in the South China Sea day by day became
Mm.
narrowed. And on the other hand, you see that the Vladimir Putin visit to Pyongyang and restrengthened its position and its relations with the Pyongyang, and these countries are the nuclear countries, and the US also has a responsibility to protect its interest in Ukraine. And now,
Yes.
as I said, in the Middle East, the situation in Palestine, they spread to the Red Sea, and they affect on the global maritime trade route, and affect 80% of the maritime trade route. And now, under these circumstances, uh, they bring the burden for the US. You know, it is not easy to activate something in some places, and when it is occupied in different. Yes, US has this experience through the globe. They operate militarily and diplomatically and economically, still has superiority to over the China. But it is not only related to the Philippines. The same situation United States facing in the Korean Peninsula, whether the US will activate its extended nuclear deterrence or not. And that is why they became a debate in the South Korea, and the public opinion rise to 70%. The Korean people, South Korean people, they say we should acquire its indigenous nuclear weapons. Why?
Yes.
Yes, because why they also had concern, if administration change in the United States, what will happen?
I guess my last question, sir, is like,
Okay.
is China in a hurry? This is our last question before we get your last thoughts. Is China in a hurry to break out from the first island chain, because they seem to be far more aggressive, far more persistent? Do they feel that if they do not do this now, they're incapable of doing it again? Because naturally, they're facing a demographic stagnation and falling demographics. Their economy isn't as strong as it used to be. Do they feel that it's now or never? Is that what we're facing?
Yes, the problem here is the world, and as the people, we are living
Mm,
this century. We have never been tested the China's as a global hegemon through the history. China never became a global superpower, global hegemon like the United States. We have the people in this century, they have experience with the United States, but that's why there is a notion of the global South. Now the majority of the world, they are aligned with China, and this situation, we really never, if for example, if as you say, the China uh, will become more aggressor after they breach the first island chain, really they will attack to Japan, really they will attack to the Philippines, or only the China's, or after the China remove the US influence in the region, China
mm,
really will become a peaceful with its neighbors. Of course, from the China's point of view, from the Chinese newspapers and reports, they say China will become peaceful with its neighbors. And historically, China see itself as a mother of the region. They say these small countries like a children, and we are a mother. And
right.
China propose a new governance system through the world.
So this is it insisting on its motherhood onto other states in the region, to the detriment of the American hegemony.
Yes, and the motherhood, we really don't know. It also can be explained in the various situations. What kind of mother, a peaceful mother or aggressive mother.
A tiger
This is
mom.
all the yes, as I said, the issues here, we still didn't experience the Chinese governance, global governance systems, and there is no I think objective analysis of this situation. When we look at to the Western and Anglo-Saxon media, they insistently they say the Chinese will be aggressor, will attack its neighbors. And when you look at the Chinese side, they say no, we will be peaceful. The only problem between us and our neighbors is the United States. They say, they show the previous governments. They shows another countries like like just give the name, like the Cambodia, like the Laos. They say we have a good relations, but we have good relations with Vietnam. We solve our some maritime issues very generously. But still we don't know. This is a strategy or this is a real behavior of China. This is the problem, but this is will be clear after if China be able to breach the first island chains. If China be able to go beyond the first island chains, that time I think everything will be clear whether China will be aggressive or peaceful.
Thank you. So, Alex,
Yes, I think. Do we have any more questions from our commenters?
not really, no.
Okay, so I think that's about it. Thank you, Dr. Lokman. Thank you for taking the time, for being with us on a Sunday night here, Philippine time. on Sitrep PH and for your great interest in what's happening here in the Philippines. Do you want to plug any of your work or social media? Where can people find you, Dr. Lokman?
And it's a great pleasure to join your podcast. Really, it's a very nice comment, and it became like a friendly conversation between us. And I hope in the future we will more engage on these situations. And regarding my jobs on social media, I think I have my account, and if anyone want to find, I have my YouTube channel and other
Mm.
things. The people, I think, if just type my name, they will find something about me, and I will be happy if they can send question or comments. I'm happy to be among you.
Do you have any interesting work coming up, Professor, Doctor? Where are you based out of now? Like any academic work?
I'm just expecting to join the university. I just fresh PhD graduate and applied for.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And on the next semesters, I hope I will join the university as an assistant
Which
professor
which one are you looking
in
at,
my
sir?
in my home country.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yes,
So with that, we would like to thank Dr. Lockman for his time and generosity and being with us here on Sitrep PH. This has been Sitrep PH, the podcast on Philippine affairs and Filipino interests. This has been at Ivan at Home and Inform PH hosting live from Manila. Tune in to our podcast and for replays at at Sitrep PH on YouTube and on Twitter, and also on Facebook.com/SitrepPH. Philippines, thank you and good night. Mabuhay. Thank you, Professor. Thank you,
thank
Doctor.
you, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.